listening to Proof Text, a Glossa House podcast by Dr. T. Michael W. Halcomb, Dr. Frederick J. Long, Dr. Mario Melendez, Dr. Jennifer Noonan, and J. M. Smith. Welcome and enjoy.
Hello and welcome to Proof Text. I am Michael Halcomb, and this is a Fallacy of the Week episode. In this episode, I want to draw your attention to a trend that has become popular within the last half a week or week from the time of me recording this episode. If you are watching in October of 2023, what has recently happened in the last couple of weeks is that war has broke out in Israel, and particularly between Israel and Palestine, or the Gaza Strip. So it's being fought between Israel and mainly Hamas. So there's a trend floating around on the internet right now that Hamas was actually mentioned in Scripture, and all the prophecy kooks are coming out as saying, oh, it's prophesied in Scripture, and this was meant to happen. So let me just say off the jump that most of these people making these videos and making these claims don't really know their biblical languages and probably struggle with understanding some of the history. But a sort of simple rule of thumb is that most people, when they're dealing with languages like Arabic and Hebrew Semitic languages, and they're just native English speakers, they're probably going to struggle through making sense of all this. And they might see and hear some connections that aren't necessarily there, that are, in other words, fallacious. So let me just show you kind of what I'm talking about. I mean, if you just Google Hamas in the Bible, and I'll pull this up on my screen here, you'll get an idea of what I'm talking about. So if you're watching, you'll have a little bit of an advantage here. If you're listening, that's fine too, as always. So I just Googled Hamas in the Bible, and essentially the first major entry that comes up, unfortunately, is on the website of Ray Comfort. Now, Ray Comfort does his Way of the Master stuff, and I know he has a lot of haters, but I know Ray Comfort's also done some good for apologetics and evangelism. Nevertheless, I take issue even with the heading on his website, Hamas mentioned 4 times in the Bible. So if we're to click that, then we'll see, and you can see the thumbnail that he has for his video. He's covering his face, and there's a clip of an ancient manuscript, and it says "look closely," and it has a Hebrew word circled, and the Hebrew word is actually shalosh. I think it's the number 7. So this doesn't say Hamas at all, and there's buildings being blown up in the background, so it's a very dramatic thumbnail. But already from the thumbnail, then, we should know that something's off. And the title of the video is Israel-Hamas War, Fascinating Bible Prophecies. And so I watched some of it. I'm not going to share it here. It's really just ridiculous. And he essentially says that if you don't agree with him that Scripture was prophesying all this, that you yourself are fulfilling prophecy as an anti-prophet. It's really just absurd. We go back to YouTube, you see the second one, Hamas was prophesied in the Bible, Genesis 6. There's a Reddit thread, is Hamas mentioned in Scripture, Joel, Obadiah. And so there's all kinds of stuff on this, and these videos floating around. We're not going to watch a lot of them, or really any of them here, but let's just think about whether Hamas is indeed mentioned in Scripture, and whether that same word, Hamas, which is a Hebrew word in Scripture, is the same word in Arabic. In fact, that's the place we should start. So let's just start. We're going to go to the friendly website that I like, TWetter Lookup, And you'll see we can go here and start to type in Hebrew, Hamas, and it'll come up. So we have two different forms here, one with the comments under the hey, and another one with a comment, hey, mem, patak, samek. And then you see hey, comments, mem, comments, samek. So I think I said this wrong. Hey, comments, mem, patak, samek, and then hey, comments, mem, comments, samek. So there we go. They're essentially the same word, same root. One is a verb form, and one is a noun form, a masculine noun. So we're probably not thinking about the verbal form here. You can see that in Hebrew, Hamas means to be violent or to maltreat or to do wrong, that sort of thing. The noun form is very similar. Hamas, violence, wrong, cruelty, injustice. And yeah, so there we have it. This is a Hebrew word. Okay. Hebrew is derived in the Semitic family tree from Proto-Semitic. But let's look at another page. Let's look at another site I like, which is stepbible.org. So here we go. We have this pulled up now, stepbible.org. And I'm just going to show you how I search in that. I'm going to set my keyboard to Hebrew. And you'll see that we can type in Hamas. And again, we get the same two things. So the verbal form appears about 8 times in the Hebrew scriptures in the Old Testament. And the noun form, Hamas, appears 60 times. So wherever the Ray Comfort is getting 4 times, that's ridiculous. We know that the verb appears at least 8 times, and the noun form at least 60. So there's almost 70 times, 68 times we have this, at least in Scripture. So that's another clue, along with the ridiculous Hebrew inscription on the Hebrew text on his thumbnail. Let's just look at the noun form here. And we click that, we see that Genesis 6:11, everyone loves pointing this out. Now the earth was corrupt in God's sight and was full of violence. That is haaretz Hamas, right? The land, and then you have violence there. All right, so is this talking about the modern day Arabic or Muslim group called Hamas? No, it's talking about people during Noah's time prior to the flood, like thousands and thousands of years ago. Now, one could say, well, that's his descendants. Well, that's kind of ridiculous because all these people are essentially wiped out. And by the way, that isn't talking about a people. It's talking about violence itself. So it's not talking about a people. And we could look, we go to Genesis, we see it in Exodus, in Deuteronomy, in Judges, in 2 Samuel, in Isaiah, Jeremiah. It's all over the place. Ezekiel, and Joel, and Amos, and Obadiah, and Jonah, and Micah, and Habakkuk, Zephaniah, Malachi, Psalms, all over the place, right? This noun form, Hamas. So, we see that in Hebrew it does mean often violence or something like that. Now, we gotta ask, is that connected to the Arabic language? So let me show you a chart here. This is just a Semitic language family tree with a timeline. And you can see if we go back to about 2500, we have Akkadian, we have some other languages mentioned here. So if Hebrew down here, it comes onto the scene around, I don't know, between 1500 and the year 1000 BCE. And so it precedes, if we look a little bit forward and down, it precedes classical Arabic, which comes onto the scene between 500 and 1000 BCE. In other words, biblical Hebrew it precedes classical Arabic by about 1,000 years, and maybe even more, maybe 1,500 years. And so this is And we could maybe even make the case that, classical Arabic is different than modern Arabic, and that puts even way more distance between the two. Although we know Muslims do prefer, like with their Quran, classical Arabic and that sort of thing. But we also know that there are new modern Arabic words, and there are differences between classical and modern Arabic. So this is a problem to say that to try to connect the modern Arabic word Hamas, which comes thousands of years after biblical Hebrew, back to the biblical word Hamas. Right? So this is what we call a historical anachronism, or an anachronistic fallacy. And then this would encompass other types of language fallacies. We would maybe call this a false friend fallacy in linguistics, or a false cognate fallacy, where you have two different languages, and the word in each language looks and sounds the same, but isn't the same. All right, so keep that in mind. If we go do a look on Google for Hamas, we can take Wikipedia's entry on Hamas, and right at the top it will have Hamas written in Arabic for us. If you're watching, I've highlighted that. So there's the word Hamas, and Wikipedia is telling us that Hamas is actually an abbreviation in modern Arabic. Right? It's abbreviating Haraka al-Muqawama al-Islamiyya. And I'm not going to pretend that I said that correctly. I don't know the pronunciation of all these words in Arabic. But if you look at this, right, this is the name of the organization. And when you translate the Haraka al-Muqawama al-Islamiyya, when you translate that into English, it is Islamic Resistance Movement. Now, Hamas is an abbreviation of this. So there's the H sound, there's the A sound, Haraka al, all the second word, H-A. We're taking the first letter from each of these. Muqawama, there's the M. So we have H-A-M, and then we have another al, H-A-M-A, and then the last word is Islamiyya. And we're taking the second letter from that, the S. So that's where we get Hamas from. It's actually an acronym, right, for Islamic Resistance Movement. So it's not drawing on the Hebrew word Hamas, right? In fact, if we do another thing and we go to this Arabic English lexicon, what we can do is just take that word Hamas that we copy from Wikipedia and paste it in here and in the Arabic English lexicon, and you'll see what pops up. The Arabic dictionary, a modern Arabic dictionary. And you'll see that Hamas in modern Arabic actually can mean enthusiasm, excitement, zeal, passion, fervor, motivation, vigor, eagerness, strength is a very common understanding of what it means. And you can see some example sentences here. My father would have been most upset to see someone without Hamas, enthusiasm. Even as one enters, the staff show no Hamas to push products, enthusiasm. There is a great feeling of Hamas around the club, excitement. Right? So Hamas, as a modern Arabic word, has a positive connotation, strength, excitement, that sort of thing. And so it makes more sense that this modern group, Hamas, would be drawing on that Arabic word for the name, rather than the Hebrew word. Why would they draw on the language of a people that they hate to derive the meaning of their name? It makes absolutely no sense. And by the way, why has nobody why all of a sudden are people sort of pointing this out when Hamas has been around for a long time? And now saying, oh, this is prophesied. It's just stupid. It's just stupid and irresponsible. It's a lot of language fallacy, historical anachronism especially, feeding into this. False cognates, false friends feeding into this, and just not understanding how language works. Not taking the time to understand the historical context of biblical Hebrew, ancient Hebrew, and the historical context of classical Arabic versus the historical context of modern Arabic. Right? So no, Hamas is not prophesied in Scripture anywhere ever. And if you hear someone saying that, point them to this video because they're wrong. They're committing linguistic fallacies. So this is important because if for no other reason, Christians can do this thing where they push these seemingly catchy videos about, the Bible's prophesying this or prophesying that. Look how magical the Bible is. And what that can do is it's rooted in ridiculous, historical absurdity and linguistic absurdity. And what that can do is stoke the fires of feud between Jews, Christians, and Muslims, or between Jews and Muslims, or between Christians and Muslims, or between Christians and Jews. So this irresponsible understanding of language, the irresponsible use of history to try to make the Bible seem magical is ridiculous, and it can hurt a lot of people in the end. And what it does is it just makes Christians and the people doing this look like complete morons and idiots. So stop it. No, Hamas isn't in the Bible in terms of the modern terrorist group. It was never prophesying about the modern terrorist group. So stop it. Handle the text responsibly. Handle the text responsibly. All right, I'm going to stop there, and I'll say I hope that helps.
Interested in growing your ancient language skills but not sure where to start? Glossa House can help. From illustrated readers and short stories to lexicons and grammars, Glossa House offers a variety of resources for beginning, intermediate, and experienced ancient language learners. Head to glossahouse.com today. Glossa House, language resources for the global community.